I never believed in monsters. At least, not the kind whispered about around fires in stories meant to frighten children into obedience. But everything changed the night I traveled to a small village in South Africa where the air itself seemed to carry a warning. I had gone there out of curiosity to hear the local legends firsthand. They spoke in hushed voices about the Tokoloshe, a creature that was neither man nor beast, said to slip into homes at night and torment those unlucky enough to draw its attention. At first, I thought it was just another tale, the kind you'd find anywhere in the world. But something about the way the villagers spoke, eyes darting to the tree line, voices lowering whenever the name was mentioned, made me uneasy. That night, they refused to let me sleep in the open guest hut. An old woman grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Do not leave your feet uncovered, do not sleep alone. And if you hear scratching on the roof, pray it does not come inside." I laughed nervously, trying to play it off, but her eyes didn't waver. They were filled with a fear so raw that it sank deep into me. And then, when the lanterns went out and silence fell over the village, I heard it for the first time. Not footsteps. Not the wind. But a low, rasping breath just outside my door. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe an animal. But the longer I lay awake, the clearer it became. The sound was deliberate, slow, heavy, a presence waiting just beyond the thin walls of the hut. Then came the scratching. It started faint, like branches brushing the roof. But the pattern was too precise, too sharp. 3 strokes, pause, 3 more, each scrape sent chills up my spine. I remembered the old woman's words, "Do not sleep alone." And suddenly I understood why the villagers avoided the guest hut. I rose from my mat and moved toward the door, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure whatever was outside could hear it. I pressed my ear against the wood, holding my breath. Silence. And then tap, tap, tap. Not on the roof this time, on the door, just inches from my face. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over myself. My instinct screamed at me to open it, to prove there was nothing there. But before I could reach for the handle, a shadow slid across the thin crack at the bottom of the door, low, impossibly low, as if whatever was out there was crawling. And then I heard it, a voice, not quite human, not quite animal. A guttural whisper, rasping through the wood. "Let me in." My body froze, every hair on my neck stood on end. I couldn't move, couldn't think. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the hut itself was shrinking around me. That was when the scratching returned, this time on the inside of the walls. The scratching spread along the walls like claws dragging through the wood. It circled me, moving too quickly to follow. I pressed my back against the farthest corner, trying to track it with my eyes, but the sound was everywhere above me, behind me, right at my feet. And then it stopped. The silence was so sudden it hurt my ears. For a heartbeat, I thought it was gone. But then the mat I had been sleeping on moved. Something shifted beneath it. A slow bulge rose, as though something small but powerful was crawling underneath the woven reeds. I staggered back, every instinct screaming at me to run. The mat split open. A hand emerged, thin, dark, almost shriveled, with nails sharp as thorns. The fingers curled against the floor, pulling the rest of its body through. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. The thing that crawled into the moonlight was no taller than a child, but its presence filled the hut. Its eyes glowed faintly, yellow like fireflies caught in a jar, and its mouth stretched far too wide for its face. Every motion was wrong, jerky, twisted, like a puppet pulled on tangled strings. It looked at me and smiled. "You hear me?" it rasped, the same voice I had heard through the door. Its words rattled like dry leaves in the wind. You see me. I could feel my knees weaken. This was no dream, no story. The Tokoloshe was real, and it was inside. I stumbled toward the door, desperate to escape, but the creature was faster. It scuttled on all fours, blocking my path in a heartbeat. Its movements were too quick, too precise, one moment across the room, the next right in front of me. "Where will you go?" it whispered. "No one leaves once they've been marked." My blood ran cold. Marked? I glanced down at my arm and froze. 3 thin scratches, bright red, burned across my skin. I hadn't felt them being made. The Tokoloshe tilted its head, almost playful, and reached a long finger toward me. I pressed against the wall, trapped, every breath shallow. The air grew thick, suffocating, as if the creature was pulling the very life out of the room. And then, in the stillness, I realized the truth. The villagers hadn't left me alone in the hut by accident. They had left me as bait. The Tokoloshe crept closer, its body contorting as if its bones bent at impossible angles. I pressed flat against the wall, but the creature's presence filled every inch of space. Its glowing eyes burned into mine, and I felt something inside me weaken, like my strength, my will, was being pulled out drop by drop. Then it struck. It lunged forward, too fast for me to react, its clawed hand latching onto my chest. A searing cold shot through me, not just on my skin but inside, like ice clawing down my veins. I gasped, my breath torn away as the creature's fingers sank deeper, not into flesh, but into something far worse, my very spirit. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The Tokoloshe's grin widened, jagged teeth flashing in the dim light. "Yes," it hissed, "I will drink you." My vision blurred, the edges of the world dimming as if the hut itself were vanishing into darkness. I could feel it pulling something vital from me, tugging at the threads of my being, unraveling me piece by piece. Desperate, I shoved against it, but my hands passed through its body like smoke. It wasn't fully physical, it existed half in this world, half in another. My strength slipped away faster with every second. "No one escapes," it whispered again, its voice now inside my head. "Your breath, your soul, it is mine." I collapsed to my knees, the room spinning, my heartbeat slowing. For a moment, I thought this was the end, that I would fade into nothing, my body left behind while the Tokoloshe carried off what made me human. But then something stirred within me. The scratches on my arm, those 3 burning lines, flared bright red, glowing against my skin. The Tokoloshe recoiled for a second, its smile faltering. It hissed, covering its face as if the light wounded it. A surge of heat rushed through me, breaking the suffocating cold. My body trembled, caught between collapse and survival. I didn't know what force had awakened inside me, whether it was the villagers' plan, some forgotten ritual, or sheer defiance, but for the first time, the Tokoloshe seemed uncertain. Its yellow eyes narrowed, and with a snarl, it lunged again. This time, it would not play. The Tokoloshe froze before me, hissing in pain as the glowing scratches on my arm blazed brighter. For the first time since it revealed itself, the monster looked unsettled. Its crooked grin faltered, and those molten yellow eyes flickered with something I hadn't thought possible: hesitation. The air between us pulsed with heat and cold, my breath catching as my body trembled from exhaustion. I thought just for a fleeting second that this glow meant salvation, that perhaps whatever curse the villagers whispered about had now become my shield. But then it laughed. A deep, rattling sound, like bones grinding together, filled the hut. The Tokoloshe leaned close, its face inches from mine, the stench of rot and ash crawling into my lungs. "Do you think light saves you?" it whispered, its words vibrating through my skull. "It only makes you tastier." The glow on my arm faltered, my heart sank as the lines flickered weakly, like a dying ember struggling against a storm. The creature's shadow lengthened across the walls, twisting into shapes that moved even when the fire did not. I staggered backward, desperate, but the Tokoloshe advanced slowly, deliberately, as if savoring my fear. Then, as quickly as it had come, it stopped. The flames in the hearth roared higher without warning, flooding the room with sudden brightness. The Tokoloshe screeched, covering its eyes, its body writhing as if the fire itself burned it. I threw an arm up against the blaze, heat scorching my skin, and when I looked again, it was gone. The hut was silent. The only sound was my ragged breathing and the sharp crackle of the fire. My knees buckled, and I collapsed onto the dirt floor, trembling. Had I won? No. Even as I sat there, shivering in the firelight, I could feel it. The Tokoloshe had not been destroyed. It had retreated, yes, but not in defeat. It had left deliberately, like a predator circling back into the grass to wait for the perfect moment to strike again. And then came the sound. At first faint, then unmistakable, a laugh. Not outside the hut, not from some distant place, but from within. My ears rang as the voice slithered inside my mind. You cannot banish me, you carry me now. My blood ran cold. The scratches on my arm, those strange, glowing marks, still burned faintly, pulsing with every heartbeat. The realization hit me like ice water. It had not been repelled by the light. It had marked me with it, tied itself to me in ways I couldn't yet understand. When I stumbled outside into the night air, the village was still, no one came, no one checked on me. The world seemed abandoned, as if time itself had frozen while the Tokoloshe had been here. The silence pressed down on me heavier than its grip ever had. I looked to the trees. Their shadows bent unnaturally, stretching in directions that defied the fire's glow. And among those shadows, for the briefest instant, I saw it, a hunched silhouette, watching me from the tree line. Its yellow eyes glowed once, then vanished. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I felt. Since that night, I have never been alone. Even now, writing these words, I feel its weight pressing against my shoulders, hear its breathing when the room grows quiet, sense its grin in the darkness just beyond the edges of light. The Tokoloshe doesn't kill you outright. It lingers. It waits. And once it has chosen you, there is no escaping. So if you ever find yourself alone late at night and you hear a low chuckle in the corner of your room, don't bother searching, don't bother running. Because once the Tokoloshe has marked you, it will always be there. If you made it this far and the thought of the Tokoloshe unsettled you even a little, then you're one of us now. Subscribe because the next story might just reveal the creature waiting in your shadows.